1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, when you're feeling down and motivated in the midweek, we got the guys here to make your life complete. Little John, Brandon, Cody, Carly, they're coming in to keep you motivated all week. New episode, same time every week. Don't gotta wait long for the next one to release. So don't go away, sit down, take a seat, enjoy Midweek Motivation with John and Carly. Hey,
Midweek Motivation.
let's go!
What is up, Midweek Motivation family? Pastor Carly here. Got Megan from the team with us today as well. And then two of my good friends, Austin and Wes. I just want to say welcome to the show. Let us know that you are here in the chat. We're excited. We love that we get the opportunity to do this every single week. And so go ahead, let us know in the chat that you are here. Go ahead, like, subscribe, follow, wherever you're watching that. I'm monitoring Facebook and our app and online. And so if you're on YouTube, we love you. We're just not monitoring it right now. So if you want to join the chat and get your stuff mentioned, jump over to our, online campus. It's already starting. Jump over to our website, our app. You can watch us on both of those. You can also watch us on our Facebook channel. Just a reminder, we are on like a 2-minute delay online. So if you say something and we don't respond right away, don't worry, we're not ignoring you. I promise. We will get to your chat as soon as we see it. I'm trying to get Facebook pulled up so that we can give some shout outs here. As a reminder, hey, Courtney said they're watching from the cafe. I forgot. Yeah. We were going live in our cafe in our lobby today, which we don't ever do. So welcome to all the KCA people down there in the cafe who's able to watch the show. Courtney, good to have you on the show. For whatever reason, Facebook now is wanting to square out our videos when they are live. So if you want the full experience, I encourage you to jump over to the app or to the website. And we'll be sure to give you a shout out there. You just got to click chat with us, join the conversation, and you'll be in there. Hey, Benny, Michelle, Harefield, one of you, both of you. I about said all both of you. My roots are coming out. John Brunk, what's up, Midweek Motivation crew. Tanya Blankenship with us. So I think I've said everything. Follow, like, subscribe, download our app. Oh, it's on the bottom of your screen there. Text Motivate to 540-900-3838 so that we can just motivate each other. I say it all the time. There's others, but John Brunk, several times during the week, he's always texting the Midweek Motivation crew and just encouraging us, and we want that. We want you guys to encourage us. We want to encourage you. And you don't have to text the word motivate. That just puts you in our group so that when we do like contests and things like that, you get that. You could just simply text a prayer request to 540-900-3838. We're going live in the cafe, and it's like I'm super nervous all of a sudden. Like I've never done this before. Like, what do I do with my hands? And I apologize. We have not hid Little John in a little while. He's sitting on my desk.
Ooh.
So
I saw him at the cafe cash register.
Yeah.
Last Sunday, but
Yeah.
he was just sitting there and nobody brought him.
Now he's been migrated to my desk. I will hide Little John this week. If you find Little John, you get something free from our cafe. You just have to mention Midweek Motivation. At least that's what we say you're supposed to do. I don't know if people are doing that or not, but they're getting free stuff from the cafe. Mm-hmm. Wes here is like the champ of finding Little John, or the Phillips family.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like the champ of finding Little John. Mm-hmm. And now that I said I'm going to hide Little John, Wes is ready. I think he practices. I think they hide stuff around their house, and they're like, just pretend it's Little John. Tonight we're playing Find Little John.
That's right.
You got to practice for it. So both of us, says Benny, awesome. Anna Alicia M.O.D. Arias. Pretty sure I butchered that, but so good to have you with
It's
us.
in Panama, I think.
Yeah.
Friends in Panama.
Yeah. Did I say that right, Megan?
I think so, yeah.
Yes, look at me go. Good to have you watching from Panama. This is awesome. So we've been on this really kind of heavy topic for a little while now, but it's a topic that every generation needs to talk about. Every every person needs to hear, because at some point in time, you're faced with mental illness or depression or anxiety or fear, or all of them. And so we've been talking about this and kind of stemming from the book by Chris Hodges, Out of the Cave. And this also stemmed from losing someone really close to me through suicide, who was dealing with mental health and mental health issues, and the medication that they were on just kind of changed who they were. And I wish I had the stats from the last 2 weeks, but I think it's like 1 out of every 9 peoples, whatever. Yeah, 1 out of every 9 deals with some sort of mental health or has been on some sort of medication for mental health. And so with all of that happening, and then hearing about a kid who, well, he's not a kid anymore, but a kid who grew up beside me in my hometown, hearing about him trying to commit suicide, taking 2 bottles of sleeping pills, I think it was. I was like, man, we gotta address this. We gotta talk about this. And so I just want to say to anybody watching, we are not experts.
No.
We are not doctors. Speaking of doctors, we just had Dr. Carson here on the mountain, man. It was cool. He read a story to the younger kids at KCA and then shared with the older kids. It was really cool. Had some Q&A time. And I'm going to tell you, some of them in the first session straight up preached when they gave them the mic. I was like, man, let's go to church. It was pretty cool. And then some cool questions from the high schools and some of the adults as well. But we're not professionals. We're not claiming to have all the answers. Basically, what we're wanting to do is, while we understand that there is a very physical and a mental side to mental health, clearly, mental health, we want to talk about the spiritual side of it a little bit and kind of what we can do. And so just a couple, I want to kind of bring you back full circle in case you missed out on previous episodes. I want to make sure that I get you up to speed. I'm not going to share everything, all the notes from the previous ones. But one thing that I do want to share is depression is real. It's not something that people make up to kind of be a cop-out. Depression and mental illness is a very real thing. It's something that many people deal with and never talk about. And that's why we want to talk about it. You know, Megan, you had someone close to you suffer from this, and not to go into details, but this is near and dear and close to you as well. And Wes, you deal with people. Austin, you've gone through this, and so we're a group of people who have either dealt with it or have been close to it, and somebody close to us. And so I want to say from experience that I know it's real.
Yep.
But here's the other thing I want you to understand, and I've said this the past 2 weeks. Depression is not a malfunction of the mind. It's a signal. It's kind of like when your car check engine light comes on. It's telling you something's wrong. And what happens to your car if you ignore that?
Breaks down.
It breaks down. Same thing. Yeah, same thing with your mind, with your body. If you ignore these signals that your body is telling you, you break down. And sometimes you break down to the point of no return.
Well, and it's also like one of the things that I tell my patients that I see every day.
Hey, share a little bit about what you do real quick, so people can, when you say your patients, so that people can understand.
Yeah, so I'm a licensed professional counselor in residency. So I don't have my license yet, but I'm close. And I see patients dealing with trauma, depression, anxiety, bipolar, PTSD.
Yeah.
You know, all kinds of things. Kids in foster care, kids that are being adopted. You know, helping families work through different emotional needs and traumas and things like that. And so I see patients every day in my office, and I really enjoy the opportunity to be Jesus and listen to them.
Yeah.
And one of the things I often tell my patients is, you know, depression, anxiety, mental illness, it's not a sin.
Right.
What is a sin is when someone tells you that your depression, anxiety, PTSD, whatever, reveals a lack of faith in God. But it's not. It's like saying, hey, we're faulty. I mean, you know, we're
human. We're human.
Exactly. And you look at the Apostle Paul, you know, we don't really know what his thorn in the flesh was, but, you know, maybe it was depression, anxiety, something like that. You never know. And, you know, you read the stories about Job and other people, and you're like, well, they went through all these things. Of course, they probably felt depressed. It doesn't come out and say it, but it's just a part of being human.
Yep.
We're faulty, and sometimes our mind plays tricks on us, or sometimes the devil speaks in our ears and makes us want to think bad thoughts, or we come across things that are bad thoughts in our minds, and the devil wants nothing but to steal, kill, and destroy us.
Come on.
And that's what I tell my patients all the time. It's like, you're depressed, but the world needs you. You're here for a reason.
Yeah.
You're not just here on this earth.
Yeah, two
for nothing.
thoughts just came to mind with that. And as you guys know, on midweek, we have a notes, script, whatever. We rarely stick to it. Two thoughts that came to mind is Scripture says you will face trials and tribulations.
Yep.
Not you might, not there's a possibility. It says you will.
Right?
But take heart.
Yeah.
I've overcome the world.
Right.
I love when God gives us a but in the middle of what seems like this negative. You will face some difficult situations that may bring depression, that may bring anxiety, it may bring all kinds of things into your world, but take heart, because I've already overcome that.
Yeah, and
I've already overcome the world.
That's important. That's what I like to tell my patients too. It's like, hey, I've dealt with depression, anxiety, and stuff since I was younger. I know what you're going through, and in fact, the most recent thing with my medical emergency.
I was going to share a little bit about that, but go for it.
Everybody was like, man, that's just a lot. I mean, just a lot of stress and stuff. And, I woke up one morning and half my face didn't work.
Yeah.
And it was just like, it really took a toll on me. And there were some days where I was just like, my depression was just hitting hard.
Yeah.
And I'm just, I did have those thoughts. The thoughts crossed my mind.
Yeah.
Of, taking a gun or something and hurting myself. But I'm like, that's a stupid thought.
Yeah, but
and I
so
pushed that out
what
of my
happened?
mind.
Yeah, you pushed it out of your mind because what was happening is your thoughts were backing you into a cave.
Yeah, they were.
That's what was happening.
Yeah, literally.
And you started having these thoughts like, man, I'm not worth it.
Exactly.
I'm only half functional because it wasn't just your face. Like your speech was slurred.
Oh, it was
you were
everything.
weak.
Yeah.
But in those moments, we have to remember what God says, and I love this. He says, you are fearfully and wonderfully made.
Right.
You are a royal. He could have just said priesthood.
Yeah.
You are a royal priesthood.
Exactly.
And I love that, man. You are a chosen generation.
Right.
Like not just put there, but no. You are chosen. You are created for purpose. And when we can get those thoughts out of our mind of who we think we are, and then we can understand who God says, who it's revealed to us through Scripture, and we know Scripture is true, that we are fearfully and wonderfully made, that we are His masterpiece, that He chose us,
Right.
that we are royalty in His eyes.
Right.
Man, that changes your perspective. We got a comment here. Sean said, "What's up?" John Brunk says, "I'm reading Job now." That man went through it. Amen. And then Tanya, mental health is anything like having diabetes, high blood pressure, etc. I have depression and anxiety and bipolar. I'm on meds and see a counselor, psychiatrist. I truly believe God puts doctors and counselors in our lives to help us. Amen. To the men. Amen.
Yeah, right?
That like if I remember what button was the let's go button, this is the one. That is not the one. This is the one. Nope.
Nope. Little John.
This is the one.
Let's go.
There you go.
That was worthy of a let's
We
go.
need to label those.
Yeah, we need to. Tanya, I thank you so much for sharing that. And
Right.
others are dealing with mental health issues as well. And, there is a very strong spiritual side to it.
Very much.
But there's also a physical side to it.
Yep.
We again are not immortal. We are human beings, and so last week we addressed the question of how do we end up in the cave, and I want to breeze through these really quickly so that we can get to the meat of the show. There was 6 things that I shared that come from this book, Out of the Cave by Chris Hodges, pastor of Church of the Highlands in Birmingham, Alabama. Here's 6 things that I want to address. How do we end up in the cave? One of the first ones is life imbalances. We end up in the cave through life imbalances. We're often exhausted by our unsustainable pace of life. I often heard my pastor, who recently passed away tragically, he often said, don't outpace your life.
Mm-hmm.
Don't outpace your life. We need to slow down and prioritize our lives. I was just, I don't even remember who I was talking to, but I was just talking with somebody yesterday, and I was like, listen, you have got to find time to rest. And they were like, oh, I know, I remember who it was. They were like, no, I got to do this because I got to be able to pay this, and I got to do this because I got to be able to get. I got this important date coming up. I've worked 8 days straight. I finally get a day off, and I'm like, don't kill yourself for these things.
Yeah,
don't outpace your life. Megan, you do a lot here at the church. Mm-hmm. How do you keep that life balance? It's a challenge.
I don't know if I always do a great job of it.
Again, you're human.
Yeah.
I struggle with that too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I think you have to consciously say no to some things. I'm a person that wants to say yes to everything. And
right there with you.
I'm a people pleaser. I want everyone to be happy.
Yep.
I don't like conflict. So, but it's not bad to say no.
Right.
I think you have to prioritize different things based on what's going on in your life in that season.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Sometimes we have seasons of where we're like go, go, go with our kids. And then sometimes it's go, go, go at work. And then other times it's go, go with everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Prioritizing is extremely important.
And just taking a step back and realizing, because sometimes you keep going because it's like, okay, I'm serving the Lord, I'm serving my family, I'm serving the kids. And you want to do those things, but sometimes you just have to take a step back and be like, okay, what do I need to cut out right now so that I'm not pushing myself over the edge?
Right.
You can get to the edge really fast, and you're like, all right,
yes, you can.
Something's got to, you got to make a conscious decision to step back a little bit. And sometimes that's hard to do, especially when you're in ministry and we want to serve each other and serve God and serve people. And so sometimes it can be even harder for us to realize that we got to take a step back, and it's okay.
Yeah. Just so you guys are aware, and anybody watching online, it looks like we may be having some technical issues on our Facebook page. So if you're able to hear this, go ahead and jump over. I think we are still live on our website, judging by our encoder. But we're going to keep going because we have some people down in the cafe that are watching. So
yeah, I mean, when I look over the 6 things and kind of watched last week and was looking at it, and I actually had the opportunity to read the book. Pastor Roy gave it to me a couple months ago, actually, and
cool.
It definitely helped me and lifted my spirits up. But one of the things that Chris Hodges says in the book that really touched me was that when we become depressed or we become in that mental space, we begin to neglect ourselves and what we desire and what we need, and we begin to kind of not take care of ourselves. And when we do that, we're almost hindering ourselves, and it's almost rendering us incapable of doing really some of the other stuff that we need to do. Simply just, certain things, just eating, right?
That's a big one.
Yeah, I mean, and you're not going to be able to be yourself without energy. I mean, the Snickers bar commercial nails it, right?
Yes, it does.
You have to be able to eat. You have to be able to sustain yourself. So
yeah, but Snickers isn't really healthy.
No,
right? but the idea there is you're not yourself when you're hungry. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
You ever see me when I'm hangry? Watch out.
Yeah, when people get hangry, it's bad news.
Yeah, it's something else when I get hangry. You might not want to hang around me when I'm hangry because it's
just so interesting to me too, because when we think about a cave, or when I think about a cave and you go into one, right, there's a point at which the light becomes so small because everything else is surrounded in darkness. And when we neglect ourselves, we don't seem to have the ability to really see that light at the end of the tunnel, right?
Oh yeah, that's
as you were sharing about what Christ does for us and the renewing of our mind and all of those things, just makes me think about when we're in our caves ourselves in our mind, when we're dark in there, those truths are harder to believe the farther back we're in.
Yeah.
And so it's only when we begin to take those baby steps or beginning to take care of ourselves and not neglect ourselves is the point where we can continue to walk forward to the light that's growing.
Yeah.
And we're being able to trust those things more and more and more, and then we can see them out. So
yeah, you just made me think about, this is actually number 5 on the list that we gave out last week. But one of the things that you made me think about, and when you said you go into that cave, you put yourself in that cave, and sometimes you just keep going deeper and deeper and deeper.
Yeah.
You make a turn or whatever in the cave. The light is still there. You just might not be able to see it. But what it made me think about, and one of the things that we do when we back ourselves into a cave, when we ask the question, how did I get into the cave? Well, part of it is isolation. We end up in a cave through isolation and loneliness. God never intended for us to do life alone. We have to have community. But as you were talking, Austin, here's a thought that I had. Say you are off, isolated, in the wilderness, in the woods, or whatever it may be. It's getting dark. You go into that cave initially because you think it's protection. You think it's going to shelter you from the elements. You think it's going to be your safe place. And then you get in your mind and you're like, oh, but I'm right here. I'm right here at the edge of the cave. Somebody might still see me, and somebody might still know what's going on. And so then you go a little bit deeper, and then you hear that sound, or somebody says something to you, and you're like, oh no, they know my secret. They know that I'm depressed. They know that I'm having these sorts. And so then you go further into the cave, and like you said, that light gets smaller. So what started as protection, that's what turns into your true cave of darkness and depression and anxiety and fear and sometimes ultimately suicidal thoughts. And so some of you right now, you're just at the beginning of the cave and you're thinking it's protection. And I'm telling you it's not, because what you're doing is you're isolating yourself. You need community. We need community. And that's why we're a church of life groups. That's why we have life groups. That's why we have community. That's why we have fellowship. Another thing on this list is comparing ourselves with others. You know, on a church side of it, I'm just going to be real and transparent here. On the church side of it, I'm always watching other churches to see how we can do things better.
Right.
And I'm always comparing, like, man, why can't I just figure this out? And then I get bummed out, and you know, I kind of get in the early stage of a cave and kind of start to isolate myself. And that's why I love that our life group is now, we're called the After Party. Pretty neat, because we're like after college, not quite yet big adults, real adult. I don't know. And then we're also right after service.
Yeah.
And so what I like about that is, if you know anything about pastors or anybody in ministry, that Sunday afternoon is when we are hit the hardest. We second guess everything we did, everything we said. How could we have done it better? And so we come out of this spiritual high. It could have been the most amazing service, but we come out of this spiritual high, and then by 2 or 3 o'clock, if we're not napping yet,
Tanked.
we're down low, and we are just drained mentally, emotionally. And that's why I like that I don't reach that point. We leave straight from church. We have our life group. And when our life group is over, I'm out. Like, unless the Steelers are playing. And then
You're engaged.
I don't know. I wasn't engaged last week. They
didn't do so well.
Yeah, they looked awful last week. I hope that you guys are still able to be with us on the show right now. Just like Facebook just doesn't like us much. I think we're still live. I'm trying to get you guys back up.
Well, going back to the comparing ourselves with others, I read a statistic. I don't remember exactly what it was exactly, but I remember, I don't remember the numbers, but the statistic was basically saying that social media, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, all those things that all young people, kids, young adults are doing, and it's leading to more depression, anxiety, suicides, and things like that.
Yeah.
Because they're comparing themselves to others. Because social media, we don't show ourselves, with bedhead. Or,
we get the highlight
or the
reel.
nasty breath, or puking in the bathroom or whatever. We get everyone's perfectly made up face, outfit, all that, and it's all filtered, and it makes you look the best ever versus really seeing the real person.
Yeah.
And then you compare yourself to others, and you're just like, oh, well, they're skinnier, they're more beautiful, they've got their life together, and it's like, no.
That's who God
compare
created
yourself to
them to be.
Exactly. Well, and not
who
even that. It's
created
the
you
filters
to
that
be.
make them look that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's not real life.
Yeah. Yep. Like I always say, and really it's kind of why we created this show and the catchphrase of real conversations with real people about a real God. And you will often hear me say, man, be real. Be who God created you to be specifically. Because if you try to be anybody else, you're going to fail. Because
Right.
it's not who God created you to be. And that's when we slip into that comparison. I guess you can call it comparison syndrome, that
Yeah.
comparison trap.
Cycle. It just doesn't end.
Yes. Because the moment you think you're out of that cave, you see somebody else, or somebody tells you something like, did you hear what this person did? Did you hear what this church did? Did you see this?
Right.
And, I think about these perfect family photos. If you have ever seen any of my family's photos, we ain't that family.
Right.
And there's a reason behind it. Like, when you see those perfect family photos, what you don't see is the 30 and 45-minute argument, and then the threatening, like, if you don't stop crying right now. And I've done that.
Right.
But now we're at the point, like, we're like, man, smile. And then, like, we're just still taking the pictures, and we're like, well, this is us. this is what you
Exactly.
get. What you see is what you get with us. There's no need in putting up this fake front and falling into the comparison trap. We end up in this cave when we do that. And we have to focus on the task God has given us, but also who he has created us to be. Another one that we fall into is ruminating and self-talk. We end up in the cave by ruminating and talking negatively about ourselves. And it's kind of like what you said earlier. You got to take your thoughts captive.
Yeah.
You got to take them captive. And you can't control where your mind goes, but you can control where you
Well,
go when your mind goes.
Yes and
there.
no. And like I tell my patients, I always tell my patients, I'm like, okay, you say all these bad things about yourself. And I tell them, look, would you say that, if they have a young son or young child, son or daughter, whatever, I say, would you say that to them? Or I say, hey, remember back to when you were 3-4 years old. Would you talk to yourself that way? Would you want someone to talk to you that way? And they're like, oh, no. I said, well, you have to envision yourself as a child of God.
Yep.
Someone who is precious
Yep.
and loved.
And so again, that
And
goes
child of the
back
king.
to what I was saying. Like, you can't control when that thought comes, but you can control where you go when that thought
Exactly.
comes. And so that's where you take your thought captive. Where normally you would look in the mirror and you're like, dang, when did I get that big? Like, or where did my hair go? Y'all weren't supposed to laugh at that.
Sorry, bro. You set that up.
Where did my hair go? And in that moment, like, while it's not a major negative thing that you say, the enemy is like, oh yeah, here's my chance. And so he takes those two and he compounds them, and he makes you start thinking even more and more negatively. Well, in that moment when you say, man, when did I get this big? You got to take that thought captive right there in that moment and say, listen, while I might have fell off and ate too many donuts, whatever it may be, I'm still a child of God.
Right.
I'm still fearfully and
I
wonderfully
even did that
made.
before we came on air today. I was like, man, the camera adds like 50 pounds and I'm old and fat, man. But then I'm talking to myself negatively right there.
Yep. We gotta take our thoughts captive, and we can't ruminate on this self-talk.
There's a book by Levi Lesko called
I love
I
Levi
Declare
Lesko.
War.
Yes.
And in that book, he talks about how our negative self-talk, we have to kind of be like the TSA agents in the
Yeah.
airport. And we have to think of it like it's like that the baggage claim, that car that's going, and how they don't let things go through. Like when they take it to the X-ray, they look at things like, oh, this doesn't pass. They set it off to the side. Right? We have to do that mentally with every thought we have. It's like
Yes.
a visual.
I
training,
like
you
that.
know?
Yeah, that's
Once
cool.
it comes to the X-ray, does it make the checks? Is it allowed? Is it on our list to continue? If no, pick it up, throw it in the bin, get rid of it, and then pass through and keep walking. So.
I like that. That's good. All right, a couple other things so we can really get to the heart of this today is inability to process pain in a healthy way. That's kind of self-explanatory. A lot of times, I don't want to breeze past it, but a lot of times what happens is when we face pain, whatever it may be, mental pain, physical pain, the first thing we want to do is cycle to what the next one is, number 5, which we talked about, is isolate ourselves. When people are going through a tragedy, a lot of times they say, I just can't be at the church. I can't go to church. Negative. That's
when you
where
need to be
you
there.
need to go.
Right.
You need to not isolate yourself. You need to not make yourself and put yourself in this lonely state. You need to get around people, even when sometimes it just absolutely sucks. There's sometimes that I'm in a mental state where I'm just like, I don't want to people I don't want to be around anybody now. And it's very likely in that moment, you need somebody to be around. Even if you just have that one person that you could call at any moment and be like, hey, Austin, dude, can we just like jump on Rocket League right now and just talk while we kick a soccer ball with a car?
Yeah.
Who thought of a game like that anyways?
Right.
Yeah.
But you need that person that I don't want to say they'll drop everything, but they'll basically drop everything because they know in that moment when you say, I need you, they know it's real. They know that, all right, Carly needs me right now. We got to have those people in our lives that are there.
I think it's
that help us
too,
process it.
If like when we see those individuals in our congregation or out in public or in our churches or wherever we see them, I think it's also important that we as onlookers, we don't miss the opportunity to aid in what they need, and we don't say, well, I don't have answers for you. Most of them just need an ear to listen, right?
Yeah.
And so just not missing an opportunity and owning the moment to really
That's
be
good.
able
Don't
to
miss the opportunity. Don't miss the
exactly.
moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Hey,
why I
so-
love our church, because like when I had that physical issue with the palsy, I was like, I don't want to go to church. I don't want people to see me and hear me talk like I'm like something's hugely wrong with me, which it was. But it was just through coming to church, people were encouraging, giving me a pat on the back, saying, "Hey, we're praying for you."
Dude, let me just tell you
Things are
something
going
about this
great,
guy here. All right, so this guy is normally one of our main switcher operators. And while he was dealing with all of this guy took one Sunday off, right? Just one Sunday
just
off.
one Sunday,
and then
yeah.
the next week, he was like, I'm not ready to run switcher, but where can you use me? He's still like, dealing in the middle of this thing. And he's like, where can I be used?
And that's not me, that's God. Because
100%, man.
when all that happened, like going through the isolation, loneliness, comparing, all that, like the one thing that kept me from being really depressed and really down and just like shutting the world out was God like kept my attention and directed me to to the book of Job. And God's like, look, you need to read the book of Job.
Yeah, somebody else just said they were reading the book of Job.
And I read it, and
John Brunk.
Yep.
Yeah.
one of the things that stood out to me was when Job was going through, lost everything, and I was like, okay, we lost our son's car. I had this.
Y'all had a
attack,
lot
and
happening at
We had a
one
lot
time.
of stress, and it was like everything hit. And then my wife goes, "Oh, hey, at least we're all healthy." Next day, boom, I got the palsy. But then God kept my focus on
Wes
him
got
and said,
excited.
look, just like Job, do you know what I'm doing? Were you there when I created you? Do you know what it is that I'm doing?
Come on.
Keep focused on me. Don't worry about everything else. I got your finances. I got your back. I got your health.
That's good
This is
stuff.
not going to be a long-term thing. And I was thankful because I had people telling me, well, it could be a couple weeks. And then my wonderful cousin says, oh, I've lived with this for 20 years. I'm like, just kill me now.
Yeah.
Just let me die. Because I was really there. I was like, this sucks.
We've been talking about that. That's what Elijah said. This guy just destroyed, just annihilated 850 people. And then in the blink of an eye, he gets a text message. That's the Carly translation. He gets a text message, and he backs himself into a cave, and he says, take my life, God. Just kill me now. I'm no better than my ancestors. And we got to be able to process these things. I love this. We might have to have you guys on next week too. So we already hit
time off of work, but we'll see.
We already hit isolation and loneliness. Oh, I wanted to read what Brian Crouch said online. He said, hey guys, according to James 1:2-4, all trials in our lives are meant to build our spiritual maturity. Every trial has purpose, and it is our attitude towards the trial that matters so much. Come on, preach. God uses trials in our lives to create the grit, tenacity, and spunk in us to get through the next trial. I love it. Just my thought. Pastor Brian C. from Lynn Haven Baptist Church in Vinton.
Awesome.
Love what you guys are doing, by the way. We love you, man.
Yeah,
We
man.
love that we are all a part of the same team
Amen.
in the kingdom. And I just got to do this real quick. If you're still with us, Pastor Brian, we are doing an undivided tour where we want to bring other churches. Actually, we want to bring Midweek Motivation to your church.
Yeah.
And allow you to be on the show and share what you are doing, what your church is doing, what your ministry is doing for the kingdom. Shoot us a message. We would love to be at your church, or if we're unable to be at your church, bring you on the show for our undivided tour. That'll be the last Wednesday of every month.
Yeah.
So reach out. Megan is our missions director. Undivided is our missions theme this year, and we want to. Hey, look at that! Just like it was planned, it wasn't.
Yeah, right.
Just like it was. We want to do that. We want to create unity among the churches.
Yeah.
All right. The last thing that we face, and we did a whole series on this, and we'll do another whole series on Midweek Motivation again because it's so important. Spiritual warfare. We end up in the cave by ignoring the spiritual side of it, ignoring the spiritual
Amen.
warfare. Understand that God has given us authority over the enemy,
Yep.
but we have to consciously choose to use it.
We have to take it. That's the important part, and that's what's always troubling for people like that are stuck in addiction, because they don't choose to take that authority that God has given us.
100%. Yep. All right, so I want to get to the interview questions, but to tee it up, to set it up, there's 5 things that I want to share. And this is, we talked last week about how do we end up in the cave. Well, once we're in the cave, how do we get out of it? And based upon the book Out of the Cave by Chris Hodges that we're kind of doing this study. We're doing this study with our young adult ministry and our life group. I have a few suggestions that, and we also got you guys here who we want to talk a little bit about this. We don't even have 10 minutes left, but we're going to try to do everything we can.
Squeeze it all in.
Yeah. So there's 5 things based upon this study and scripture, really and truly, that hopefully we'll be able to shed some light on how we get out of this cave. 5 things that I think can help us get out of the cave and stay out of the cave. First one, step into a much needed recovery program.
Yep.
We have to get into physical shape through intentional rest, healthy diets, and sustainable schedules. Number 2, step into a God encounter. We need to create environments where we can quiet our souls and make room for God. One thing that I love when I get here most mornings, or once I've kind of done my study, is if you walk through our offices, you see almost every one of them either at their desk with their Bible open, praying, reading, or at their window, looking out over how God has blessed us, praying over Roanoke, praying over the valley, praying over our church. You see that almost every single morning, our staff finding their quiet place, allowing themselves to quiet their souls and make room for God. Third thing, step into a true identity. Your illness is not your identity.
Amen.
Your illness is not your identity. We need to be confident in who God says we are. Number 4, step into a new assignment. There is nothing more powerful than your purpose, and we all are created with a purpose, for a purpose. And as we pour ourselves out for others, God will fill us up if we make room for him to do so.
Well, and you also got to ask God what your purpose is. If you don't know,
Yep.
ask him. He'll tell you.
Yep. He'll tell you, he'll develop you, and then you'll see how things you went through in your life set you up perfectly for where your purpose is. Number 5, step into relational strength. We need to find a group and never do life alone. That is why we push life groups so much. Right. You're probably like, man, they talk about life groups every single week. And guess what? We're going to continue to talk about life groups every single week because we are created for community and not meant to do life alone. Check this out. 2 Corinthians 4:16-18. I got to read this whole thing. I'm sorry. That is why, and this is the New Living Translation, just my personal preference. Not that it's better than any other. I just like it. That is why we never give up. Though our bodies are dying, our spirits are being renewed every day. For our present troubles are small and won't last very long, yet they produce for us a glory that vastly outweighs them and will last forever. So we don't look at the troubles we can see now. Rather, we fix our gaze on things that cannot be seen. For the things we see now will soon be gone, but the things we cannot see will last forever. That's good stuff. All right, we got like 4 minutes max, and I got 3 questions that I want to ask. All right, so real quickly, what are some practical ways that you guys, that we really can deal with mental health personally to avoid the cave?
Well, anybody can get an appointment with my office and come and see me, and we'll sit and talk about whatever you need to for about 45 minutes to an hour once a week for as many weeks as it takes.
Yep. And listen, I'm available to talk too, but there's going to come a point like where if I've done everything I can, in the most kind way, I'm like, hey, listen, we can continue our conversation, but let's get you talking with a professional, somebody who's trained, because I'm only trained on the spiritual side of it, and there is a true physical side to it, a biological side to it.
There is.
So find somebody to talk to. What about you guys? How can we avoid the cave personally? Practical ways. You got any?
Yeah, I mean,
I think Austin.
for me, I think it really goes back to the not neglecting yourself. I mean, there's been so many times where negative emotions or feelings were coming on really strong, and there's times where I would just sit on the couch and just kind of stare at the floor. My mind's just racing a mile a minute, and I go, I'm not really sure how to captivate, how to lock that in, how to freeze. And it's almost a moment where you get up and do something really simple as a distraction, but it's progress, right?
Yeah.
And it's just constantly doing things such as working on your health, eating correctly. I mean, there's I learned through through a therapist as well that my diet was having a lot to do with some of the negative feelings and emotions. And so, just trying to really tackle everything, the workout, the diet, the personal prayer time and with Christ. And I noticed, when I really started investing in the time with Christ and with God in the prayer time, is that I didn't get a lot out of it in the very beginning, but the moment that I continued to do it and had faithfulness in it, and the moment that I read, 2-3 weeks in a row, was at that moment, it was like it dawned on me, and I looked back and I was like, man, I'm not feeling the way I was. I'm not thinking the way I was. I'm not interacting with people the way I was. And I couldn't see it, but when you look back, I mean, it's there, it's visible. So.
Yeah. Just like Dr. Carson said this morning, what you put in will come out.
Man, I say I've been preaching that for years.
Right.
In
I
youth
tell it to my
ministry,
kids.
I'm like, man, what you put in, it will come out.
Amen.
I got a story that I will not share on air about Hannah and how what you put in comes out. She's a good girl, but if you want to hear it, ask me, hey, what story were you talking about? Hannah, if she is watching right now, I'm probably in the doghouse, and we ain't even got a doghouse. So, it'll be good. Austin, one of the things that you basically just hit the third question in that practical way, and I'm just going, every single day, and you may think this is crazy, and I don't even care. Every single day, I get a hug from Austin. And I told Austin, I said, you don't know what that does.
Yeah, right.
That hug, and sometimes that's all it takes. No words, just being present. Sometimes that is a very practical way to stop somebody from being in a cave, because in that moment they're like, wow, I am loved. And I don't want you to think I'm saying I'm not loved. But when I get that hug from Austin, it's, especially the times where he's significantly taller and stronger than I am, and those moments where he grabs me and picks me up, like, I don't know, there's just so much encouragement in that hug that can change a bad day. Yep. And most times the hugs are just a hug, but then there's some days where there was one day, also, I don't even know if you realize this, it was so cool and it was so perfectly timed. I was so frustrated. I think I was working on some technology stuff. We got 2 minutes. All right, we're about to end right now in prayer. I got to share this stuff, but horrible time. And I walked by, I think I was getting coffee, and Austin says, you want a hug? And I was like, yes, I do. Like, I was.
Yeah, you ran to me, bro.
I did, man. Like, I needed that hug, and I
Right.
didn't even know I needed that hug. And
Right.
and that's what we if we're not around people, if we isolate ourselves, we don't get that hug.
Yeah.
Now, and yes, God can spiritually surround us and be tangible in the room, but sometimes He places somebody in the break room, at the coffee machine. You need a hug. So I want to encourage you today, make sure you're around somebody, because if you're in that cave, somebody is going to come to you. I'm believing it right now. I'm not prophesying. I'm no prophet, but I'm believing it right now that if you will surround yourself with people rather than isolate yourself, somebody's going to come to you and say, do you need a hug?
Right?
Yeah. I mean,
Sometimes you just need that personal touch.
Yep. Hey, we're out of time. Like, I got 1 minute max. And I don't even think that's enough to pray. But I just want blessings over you guys. We're going to continue this conversation for several weeks. We do have our Undivided tour starting really soon. Any final 5-second thoughts real quick?
Well, if you need mental health, just contact Associates in Brief Therapy. That's where I work. Ask for me. Or I've got a bunch of other colleagues that can see you. If you'd rather see a female, we've got plenty of ladies that are taking clients too. So hey, mental health is always good.
Yep.
I even see a counselor myself once a month. So
It doesn't hurt.
It doesn't hurt.
It doesn't hurt. Listen, reach out to your life group leader, reach out to a pastor. Any other thoughts, Austin, Megan, briefly?
I guess really quickly, it's just it's super simple, but I think one of the most touching things to hear every single day is just it's okay if you're not doing